If I were then to allow our secretary to check and indicate and give me the attendance and the apologies if she's able to do that. Ms. Machalamba.
Good morning and thank you, Chair. In attendance, it's Dr. S.M. Dlomo, Mr. Munyai, Dr. Gyanji, Ms. Gela, Dr. Jacobs, Ms. Kwahube, Ms. Chirwa, and Mr. Imam Sheikh. Thank you, Chair.
Chair.
Thank you. Can we then move on to indicate the meeting's reasons why we are here? We are here today on two items. They are both related. The first item will be a presentation on a draft terms of reference indicated to us as a challenge with regards to completing, analyzing, and processing the submissions that we have received on national health insurance. I am informed that Mr. Bandi will be leading the presentation, but this presentation was already sent to us last night, and therefore we will then be expecting members to add on it and give their comments on this process, because the timelines reflected in that report are suggestive that we need to be able to make reflections on this item and then move on someday. May I then allow Mr. Bandi to lead the presentation?
Thank you, Chairperson. And good morning, honorable members. As Chairperson has already indicated, we have been asked to make a presentation on the draft terms of reference, just for members to reflect on the document. Chairperson, can I remind members that we sent a hard copy around the 7th of September to all members. So the presentation is based on that hard copy. As a way of background, can I refresh the memories of members that the committee placed an advert calling for the submission of public comments at the end of August last year. In response to the advert, the committee received a large volume of submissions. We reported on the 2nd of September that the committee had received approximately 64,860 submissions, and that many of these submissions were accompanied by several additional submissions. We also indicated that due to capacity constraints, we request the committee to consider a proposal to procure the services of an external service provider. And this brings us to this presentation today. One of the resolutions that were made during the meeting of the 2nd was that members will discuss within their parties the issue of an external service provider and the terms of reference. Another resolution was that members will submit in writing the decisions on these matters. Can I also indicate as a way of a background that if the idea of a service provider is carried forward, the process of procuring this external service provider is handled by Parliament Supply Chain Management. What do we need from the external service provider? The next slide, please. We require an external service provider with relevant experience and proven track record.
Mr. Pande, you can read, go through your slides, maybe leave your document, read your slides here. We can see your slides.
Okay. I was saying that we require an external service provider with relevant experience and proven track record, preferably a reputable research institution. Needless to say that the service provider should have the capacity to deliver within the set time frame. There are basically two main areas of the task. The first one is that the service provider should continue with data capturing and indexing. Work has already been started internally by the support staff. So the service provider is to continue with that work. Can I highlight that the main focus of the service provider will be on the written public submission? You will recall that during the provincial public hearings, we processed around 900 oral submissions. The service provider will not focus on those submissions. There is a draft report that the support staff has produced. The focus of the service provider will be on the written submissions in response to the advert that was made in August last year. Yes, I was still on the data analysis. That will be the first. Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? The first task will be to continue with the work of capturing and indexing the data. And then the next slide, the second main area of the task will be to analyze the data and to produce a report on the substance of the submission. On that slide, we highlight some of the key deliverables that we expect from the service provider. I've already talked about the index database. We'll expect that work from the service provider with hyperlinks of PDF or actual submissions. We already have part of that. The next deliverable is an analytical report of the public submissions. In fact, this is the main deliverable. We also expect the service provider to make a presentation of the report to the portfolio committee as soon as the report is concluded. The next key deliverable also speak to the concern that was raised by Honorable Van Staden on the meeting of the 2nd. the issue of the security issue around the process. We have built into the terms of reference this security issue. We want the service provider to ensure that the confidentiality and integrity of the submissions made is maintained. The next slide, please. On this slide, we outline some of the general requirements. Amongst others, the appointed service provider is expected to provide an implementation plan on how they will index, capture, and analyze public submissions into a report. This implementation plan is to be presented at a briefing meeting. We can talk about who should be at this briefing meeting. It may not be the entire committee. It could perhaps be the chairperson, the whip, and possibly other members and the staff who are in the forefront of developing the terms of reference. The service provider is expected to work closely. We have highlighted this point previously. The service provider is expected to work closely with the content advisor and the two researchers. The final draft is to be presented to the portfolio committee on health at a date that has been identified. We have highlighted the next bullet that the members will still conduct their constitutional responsibilities. The idea is not to subsume their work. They will still continue to do their work. The service provider will just enhance the capacities that we have. That slide highlights some of the work that has been done internally. We have already a database that indicates the name of the individuals and organizations who made the submissions. We also have identified the groups and the individuals who have expressed interest in making oral presentations. You recall that we identified about, in fact, 121 organizations and individuals who expressed their interest in making oral presentations, or rather oral submissions. Another area of work that has been concluded is to provide information on who is in favor and against the bill. All the submissions that were made via email have, or rather show an indication of who is in favor. The ICT system that we use is able to tell us who is in favor and who's against the bill. We also indicated in the previous meeting that about 100 substantive submissions have already been analyzed. So the external service provider is to continue with the analysis. Next slide. I've already referred to this issue, the security issue, which was raised as an area of concern in the previous meeting. The main issue is the issue of asking the service provider to ensure that there is confidentiality and integrity. Thank you, Chairperson. The next slide, please. These are the revised dates or the time frame for processing the submissions. We're meeting today. If the committee agrees, we plan to issue the terms of reference on the 16th of October. We have adjusted the dates by just over a month. The previous date was the 10th of September. Now, if we proceed, we will issue the terms of reference on the 16th of October. The closing date should be a week later on the 27th of October. The appointed service provider will be briefed and is expected to start work by the 5th of November. The first draft must be submitted by the 20th of January. The final draft should be submitted not later than the 18th of February. And then the draft will be presented to the Portfolio Committee on Wednesday, the 24th of February, 2021. If you look at the time frame, we really need to give the service provider enough time to process all the submissions if we require work of quality. Thank you, Chairperson. That's in short the summary of the terms of reference.
Honorable members, this is the report prepared by Mr. Pandya and his team. You will notice that among other things you might have to just agree and allow that very last slide, that there may be in between sessions where as a portfolio committee we can just be getting updates on a regular basis. So that one is not opened up in that last slide, but I'm just thinking that there may be an area where after we have seen who is a successful service provider, maybe the members might just want to meet and see and hear whether the person understands clearly and actually get that. But I'm not preempting that now. May I just check if members have raised their hands? And this is a start now. I haven't seen it in our WhatsApp group, but maybe you can then raise it in this platform. I could then see the hands as they come through for those who would like to comment. The first hand that has come up is Dr. Pumza Janti, she's number 1, followed by Kenny. Number 3 is going to be Dr. Ms. Kwahube. Remember your numbers. I haven't seen any other hand. Those 3, maybe further down their hands, I can't see. Honorable Janji is number 1, Honorable Jacobs number 2, Honorable Kwahube number 3. Any other takers? Honorable Chirwa, we are number 4. Honorable Munyai, we are number 5. Honorable Kela told me she's in and out. She's having a login problem. If she comes through, that should be number 6. I haven't seen any other hand here. Yeah. Okay. Let us do them in that order, please, honorable members. Let's start with Honorable Janji.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to the members. I suppose what is being presented to us here is what we were preparing in the last meeting. We said people should write in when they come from their respective organizations, should indicate what they would like to be in this terms of reference. And therefore, Chairperson, it is my take that these are the results of all those inputs from different members. And so, Chairperson, I think if there is really nothing that is omitted from what we submitted, we should be going forward with what we had suggested. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yeah. May I interrupt before you? I noticed that in the platform we have called Honorable Hasina and Honorable Ismail and Honorable Sheikh. I see you are raising your hand physically. You are number 6. Is Honorable Gela back? So if she's not back yet, Honorable Sheikh, you are number 6 after Honorable Munyai. Honorable Ismail? No, take. Okay, that's it. Let's continue then. Let's move to Honorable Jacobs.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to everyone. Let me also thank Mr. Bandi and the team for putting the presentation together and the draft terms of reference together. I'm also very thankful that they added to the last slides, they've added the issue of the security and then also the time frames. I am a little bit concerned about the vacation, but I guess whoever tenders for the work would be mindful that they would probably be working over the December holidays, etc., in order for them to reach the deadlines which we are putting forward. So I am suggesting that we retain those deadlines, that we agree to these draft terms of reference, and I do not myself have any challenge with it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Kwahube.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the parliamentary team for their work that they've done thus far. I just have a number of clarity-seeking questions. We obviously had in the last meeting agreed that none of us are opposed to having a service provider that would work through and sort out the submissions that we have received. And so that in itself is not an issue. But then we had said that then how we proceed and how we handle the work that is being done by that provider will then be what we will be discussing, particularly today. So I just have some questions, Chairperson, that I'm unclear about. I see the timelines that the parliamentary staff have put together, which is fine. But there are a number of other things that I wasn't entirely sure about. The one is how are these submissions? So he talks about how the oral submissions will not be subject to the service provider work, and that those are being done by Parliament. I would now like clarity, Chairperson, how those oral submissions are being sorted. Because if I remember correctly, when we went through across the country and listened to thousands of South Africans given, I think the number that was given was that there were 900 oral submissions. So how are those being sorted? And you know, is it per province? How will we see that? You know, where are we going to get a collation of the oral submissions that we were all there, but we need obviously a compiled report now that will indicate, you know, what the sentiment was. Then the second concern that I have, Chairperson, is this notion that oral and even written submissions can simply be sorted by for or against a bill. I think that's a very dangerous path for us to go down. I think a lot of people, having listened to a number of people across the country who gave us submissions, were not necessarily saying yes or no, because that's not the question. The question was never a yes or no question. The question, a lot of people had, you know, given inputs, particularly the written submissions, where people had made arguments either for the bill or had said, you know, while we support the principle of the bill, here are the major concerns. So can Parliament also just explain how will those substantive comments then be factored in? If there's an ICT system that's going through the submissions and sorting them by yes or no, I feel as though that is not a substantive nor a comprehensive way of going through submissions. I think a number of organizations and individuals took the time to write to us, to give us these submissions. And I don't think that simply sorting them out in categories of yes or no will suffice. So can we please get clarity on how those will be sorted? Because those need substantive reading. You honestly have to go through each submission and mark the concerns. And even if the organization doesn't say yes or no, but some people have taken the time to give us a sort of an analysis of where they think that the bill will be going. And then the last thing, Chairperson, that I am concerned about, Mr. Banda mentioned that the briefing to the service provider will be limited to a select group of people. I think that is not, we don't, he mentioned the chairperson and the whip. We don't have a whip in our committee. Political parties are whips. There are no whips in the committee. There's a chairperson and there's members of the committee. So I think we will need to revisit that. I think that if we're going to have people meeting with the service provider to brief them on the terms of reference, then I think we need to all be there so that we can make sure that all of the terms of reference are properly understood. But if I can please just get some responses to the questions.
Okay, before I allow other members to move on, our staff may just have a limitation in replying or in answering those questions. I don't want us to lose them now. We have always gone on this spirit of being very transparent on this process because it can actually bring challenges later on in life, legally or otherwise. So it may as well be our collective response that the briefing of that service provider will be done collectively. So maybe we can actually override that that was said by the presenter. But number two, the questions raised by Honorable Kwahube are questions that may need us to reflect on because we have gone through the whole country and we've parked the work right there. Whatever we have parked right there, we have not seen a report. Now, I think that is maybe one other issue that we need to tackle, maybe even before we start listening to whoever is an organized institution to say, is this a reflection of what we listen to when we're in Mpumalanga and dispense with that? That part, even the officials here may not be able to answer because it was us who went in there and packed it. Yes, they may as well have prepared a report, which maybe we need to interrogate. You are probably right. It is not a yes or no. Get to understand those issues and pack them. So I want us just to separate the discussion of that countrywide public hearings and the report thereon and our listening to that report submitted and our sort of interrogation. Maybe that is a separate whole day's meeting that we need to have. And maybe let's just focus on this one for today and see what we can achieve. Thanks. Let's go to the next point. I think Honorable Chirwa.
Thank you, Chairperson. Well, firstly, I think it's more of a comment and a clarity-seeking question, which is very similar to what Honorable Kwahube asked, but I'll go ahead and ask it even if it's partly asked. I think it's quite, it's already a disappointing situation that we have to outsource such services when Parliament is already a place where laws are being made and being implemented, and such a service will constantly and always be in demand in a place like Parliament, and that it has to be outsourced is obviously something that leaves room for less satisfaction because it should have been an entity that exists within the system of Parliament, that there is such a category of work that has to be processed for Parliament laws, and the process we go through public hearings and written submissions and all of that has to sort out that process internally as a system of Parliament. But since we're here, well, it is what it is. Secondly, just to agree with Honorable Sivwe Kwahube, it's much more nuanced than just leaving it at yes or no. I agree with that, especially because even with the people who even agreed with the bill, had reservations that won't necessarily be covered by them being grouped with the yes people. Like, for instance, in some of the people who even supported the bill would have raised concerns over how infrastructural issues will be addressed in already existing public facilities, how the issue of human resource will be addressed, which is not necessarily fully covered in the bill, and so on and so forth. And also the issue of the referral system as per the bill. So there's some people who supported the bill, but were against how the referral system is being depicted in the bill. So the terms of reference, I think, is something that we definitely have to decipher for ourselves as a committee on how we should move forward, because the no, maybe, and yes, and a bit of the other parts that are touched won't suffice, particularly in refining the bill and ensuring that the best possibilities are captured within the ongoing conversation and the narrative surrounding the NHI. And secondly, there were even some agreements and similarities of inputs in the public hearings between people who said yes and no. So for some people would have said yes, they support the bill. The buts were very much similar to those who said they would not support the bill. And I think it's very important to not lose that part of the conversations, because many good inputs were given to us through public hearings, and I believe even in the written submissions that is the case. And another issue on the written submissions, a point of clarity. I want to know if, like, for instance, if there's a written submission with 38,000 signatures, do we count that as one submission or 38,000 submissions? Yes, thank you, Chairperson.
All right. Yeah. So that members, Honorable Munyai, hold on, so that honorable members don't get to be tempted to attend to some of the questions raised by the members. The members, I hope the staff are noting, but just to address the first one, not only for Honorable Chira, but for all of us, that we met and agreed that this process will need this way to go, because we do not have a dedicated NHI staff in Parliament. We beg, we borrow, and we steal other expertise from other portfolio committees, so they can be just very limited in assisting us. So if we do that, we will end up finishing this work in 2 years' time. So we actually requested there were some in the higher structures of Parliament to get this support, because otherwise the work will not come to an end. So the outsourcing request was actually informed by that part. But the rest of the other issues raised by Honorable Chira, our staff members will assist to clarify. Honorable Munyai.
Thank you very much for an opportunity, Honorable Chairperson. One, first and foremost, let's not allow members to misrepresent the outcome of the public hearing or attempt to manipulate, therefore, in the context of nuances in terms of representation. One, there are people that says, yes, they support the NHI bill. Why those should not be counted? And there are people that said no. What does no mean? I mean, we should not try to spin the voices of the people on the NHI.
Honorable Munyai, Honorable Munyai.
You know why I'm raising this, Honorable Chair?
I request that we don't analyze that part. Let's allow them to come up.
I'm not analyzing. You know what I'm trying to say, Honorable Chair? Some members before me, they are saying that people did not say no, did not say yes. What is that? It's not true.
Point of order, Chairperson. Point of order, Chairperson.
Can I be allowed to speak, please?
I was avoiding that now. Now, I have to ask you to wait a bit, because if there's a point of order raised, then I listen to the point of order. What is the point of order, Honorable Chira?
No, but we must not be manipulated by Honorable Munyai. If there's a member he's subbing, he must say the name and state at which point did any member in this house say that nobody said yes to the bill. Because obviously that means he's not present in the sitting and he's just speaking for the sake of speaking. The fact that he raised his hand late already gives us that point. Nobody said yes in this sitting ever since we started. So he must name the person he's speaking to or subbing in this sitting and address that matter properly. Instead of throwing shade, we are doing very serious business here. We don't have time to address nuances of people wanting to defend something. We have a right to speak, and nobody misrepresented facts. We know there were people who said yes. We know there were people who said no, and they stated their reasons in the public hearing. Who is he speaking to when he says nobody said, somebody said, nobody said yes to the bill? He must clarify that point.
Ken,
I'm trying, colleagues, to
through you,
avoid.
Chairperson, Honorable Chira, you can go to the record. She was trying to say people didn't, might have not said yes, and I might have said no, said no. She said it. It's on
That's
record.
a lie. It's an absolute lie.
And yourself, by the way. But let me go to my point, Honorable Chair.
No, you can't lie using my name, Honorable Munyai.
No.
You have to withdraw that because you are lying. You are being a liar.
No. Speak through the chair.
Chair, can you handle these people?
Don't be dramatic here.
Chair, can you handle this?
Withdraw.
Honorable, please.
No.
This is not what you call.
It's not lie.
You're
It's on
lying.
record.
You're a liar. You're lying.
No.
You're lying.
Colleagues, this is a meeting of the committee. You are not alone in this meeting. Chair, please.
Also. Nobody must come and lie in my name, and the chairperson does nothing about it.
I have not recognized you now. Don't speak. Okay. Continue, Honorable Munyai. You made a point. I listened to you, and now you are coming back unrecognized.
Now, Honorable Chair, I support 100% the proposal put forward by the staff of Parliament on the process that have been terms of reference that has been put forward. I think that's the way to go. Thank you.
Honorable Sheikh.
The rest, Honorable Chair, the rest I won't answer because it's hogwash.
No, please, Honorable Munyai, hold on, Honorable Munyai. Can we refrain from using such terms, hogwash? Because really, I might be a very stupid person and I raise a question or I ask or I make a comment, but I'm not expecting that it would be actually termed hogwash in whatever way. Just give that respect.
Test it properly. Now, the way to be told a liar, that's a nonsense. It's a nonsensical.
That's what happens when you lie. You get called a liar. When you lie, you get called a liar. Stop lying, you'll stop being called a liar. Simple. Chairperson, also address this issue of Munyai lying in my name, please.
No. It's nonsensical. That's
because you want to move on and deal with serious issues here.
Yeah, honorable members, I'm also requesting that you don't speak when you're not recognized, please. Otherwise, we are not going to handle the meeting properly. Now it's time for Honorable Sheikh. I'm leaving that now.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to appeal to my colleagues to maintain the decorum of this meeting. These meetings are televised live, even if they are recorded but played again, and I think we need to maintain the dignity of this House. But let me start off, Chair, by thanking the committee for the work that they have done in working on the terms of reference. I think we must welcome the processes that we are putting. The NHI bill is a very significant part of the lives of most of the people in this country who have for very many years been deprived of universal health care. I think my only concern is going to be, Chair, with the number and the size of the presentations that they get, although I have a question mark over public participation in the country, because those that can afford it bus and taxi people to these things, and very often a very large percentage of the vulnerable people are often left out of these things. But considering the fact that many submissions have been made, and the committee will conduct oversight and make sure that whatever is done in the best interest of trying to take this issue of this bill forward, I would like to support this wholeheartedly. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Kela will be followed by Honorable Ismail. May I request, if I'm not back yet, I've just got an urgent call. The minister wants me to call him. So I would like to get Honorable Kela, followed by Honorable Hasina Ismail, and then if I'm not back yet, Dr. Janji to take over and continue the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So,
Am I the only one who doesn't hear Honorable Kela?
No, you are not.
Although I was having a problem of network, but it was emailed to us. I went through.
Dr. Janji.
Hello. Honorable Kela, can you adjust yourself? We can't hear you.
A committee has done, and also support the terms of reference as it is, and hoping that we'll move forward to make sure.
Honorable Kela, are you through? I can't hear her. Colleagues, has Kela finished?
We can't hear her.
Comrade Chair.
Yes,
Do you
Honorable
hear me
Kela.
now?
Yes, a bit. Continue, Honorable Kela. Can I ask Honorable Ismail to continue?
What's going on, but
I can hear you now.
My mic,
Your network is very poor, Honorable Kela. Can you write on the chat, Honorable Kela? Can we move to Honorable Ismail?
Thank you. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the presentation. And while I'm covered a lot by Siviwe and Naledi, my input is simple. Our public hearings were there as a public participation process. And yes, while we agree that there will be a service provider, I think it's very, very essential for us to ensure that we don't disregard any input whatsoever by any citizen or resident that has come in to have their say at our public hearing meetings. While we have all our written submissions, petitions, etc., I feel we are somehow disregarding. It's a pity the chair is not here, but I feel by discussing the inputs of the residents that have come into our public participation hearings, I think by sidelining them and saying that we're going to be dealing with this separately is defeating the purpose of our public hearing process. So I feel that our terms of reference should include all aspects of inputs given by residents. This will ensure that, while a resident may have said that, I agree with the NHI, however, A, B, C, D, E, we need to take that input into consensus when discussing this or taking this matter forward in saying, yes, the resident did agree or did not agree with the NHI. Same issue with where a resident has said, you know what, I totally feel that, you know what, we shouldn't be implementing the NHI because we have so many other issues with infrastructure, services, etc., whether it be emergency services, etc., etc. If we don't take all the inputs into consideration, we'll be doing a disservice of the initial reasoning of our public hearings. So I feel Siviwe has covered us properly to say that, you know, we need some clarity on how these matters are going to be addressed. But by sidelining the whole thing, as the chair is sort of given a reference to, is doing a disservice to our whole public participation process. I also wanted some clarity. I have asked this question before, and I'm going to ask the question again. We have had residents submitting petitions, and on a petition, we have one person that may have given in the petition, but we have hundreds of thousands of signatures. I want to ensure and get some clarity from whether it be the staff or whoever is responsible to say that each and every signature will be added as a public participation input. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ismail. You were the last one on this. Colleagues, I'm not sure whether we are interpreting this service we are going to get. We're on the same page, because I thought the analysis that they are talking about is what the service provider has to tell us, that Pumza Janji said no, and these are the reasons. And therefore, if Ismail said no and also gave the reasons, they should collate the reasons and say, the people on infrastructure were so many out of the yeses, out of the no's. I thought that is what they're supposed to be doing. And I thought even in our own report of the public hearings, that is what we were supposed to get. That people said yes, and they gave reasons. People said no, and they gave reasons. But I'll hand over to Mr. Bandi to give some of the answers that they were asked, questions that were asked. Mr. Bandi.
Thank you, Chairperson Dr. Janti. You are absolutely right. The issue of data analysis includes the reasons why a particular submission is supporting the NHI. Can I request the content advisor to display the actual terms of reference on page 4, just to illustrate what we're saying? Page 4 of the terms of reference, please.
Please flight the terms of reference.
In the presentation that the PowerPoint presentation that we reflected on, this information is on slide 3. But for purposes of clarifying this matter, can we go to page 4, please, of the terms of reference? Oh, okay, since you are here, can we go to slide 3 and we'll also refer to the actual terms of reference?
Mr. Bandi, can you see the slides?
Not yet.
No, there's nothing there. It's not yet showing. Not yet.
Can I just ask Vyogazi to share, please, because I'm struggling. I don't know what's happening on my side.
Okay. We can go to slide 3 in the meantime, to slide 3 of the PowerPoint presentation.
Vuyo, can you share the slide that Mr. Bandi wants to talk to?
Okay, this is the slide. If you look at bullet 2 says the analysis should provide Parliament with information on who is for or against the bill. This is only the first part. The next part that honorable members were concerned about is addresses their concern. The analysis will also provide reasons why submissions support particular positions. It will go further to provide recommendations where applicable, recommendations that members of the public are making in relation to particular clauses or particular themes that they feel strongly about. I hope this addresses the matter. The actual terms of reference also have a clause that specifically address this matter.
On a point of clarity, please.
Yes, I'm trying to figure out who's talking.
Yes, Ismail.
Thank you. I just want to, on a point of clarity, find out. It says the analysis of written submissions and writing of a report on the substance of the submissions. It doesn't specify a written or verbal input. I think that is where we didn't get the information required. If we could maybe specify written and verbal inputs, it will diminish the risk or the clarity seeking question. Thank you.
I'm back now.
You are back, Chairperson.
But continue finishing.
Okay,
this.
thank you very much. You can take over. Mr. Bandi, Chair, was still trying to respond to the question of the analysis. That bullet point number 2 is saying information, whether it's against or for, they'll give reasons and recommendations.
Dr. Janki.
Ms. Ismail is saying verbal submissions should also appear in the draft terms. I guess the verbal submissions are the submissions that we will be listening to as the committee, and the ones we have listened to during our public hearings. Chairperson, can you take over?
Have all been clarity seeking questions be answered? Have they all been answered?
No, sir.
Then Mr. Bandi must continue, Chairperson. Honorable Janji, finish that session, my sister.
Which of your questions has not been answered?
Sorry, I've got Dr. Janki. I've got 2. The one it has come up about 3 times now. Can Mr. Bandi explain to the committee how the written submissions that were submitted in groups are going to be analyzed? So, for instance, some NGOs submitted, on behalf of the NGO, about 90,000 or 50,000 or 10,000 submissions, either with differing views or a similar view. How are those going to be counted? Because it's quite important. It's an important distinction, because it can't just simply be, this one organization submitted when in fact they got inputs from 10,000 different people. So we need clarity on that. How are those group submissions going to be handled? Number one. And then secondly, I think the confusion, I agree with Dr. Kyanki that there is a slight confusion about which submissions are being considered where. In my understanding, there are three different elements to this process. There's one, the oral submissions, which we got from ordinary South Africans across the country. We still need to decide how those are going to be analyzed, compiled, and reported on. And in order for us to have proper oversight on that process. That's the one thing. And then the second is obviously these written submissions, which Mr. Bandi then needs to explain, how are they being grouped? When he talks about being indexed, how so? So, if an organization has submitted multiple ones, how does it work? And how will that service provider look at those? And then the last level is obviously the process we will undertake of listening to oral submissions given to us by organizations, which is a process, again, we still need to discuss on how we will deal with. But there's already two processes that we've already done. And I think before this meeting is done, we need to clarify exactly and be on the same page how we're going to do those two things.
Thank you, Dr. Janki. Honorable Guarube is right. There are three elements to the submissions. The first one relates to the oral submissions that we conducted nationwide. And as we indicated earlier, there are reports for those submissions. They have been analyzed. Each public, or rather public hearings in each province have a particular report that, as Chairperson Dr. Domo indicated, the committee can decide whether you want to look at all those individual reports. Say, for example, you reflecting on the public hearings in Mpumalanga, you may decide to look at the individual report of Mpumalanga and see what the key issues were, what members of the public were saying in relation to the NHI in that province. We also have a consolidated report on the oral submissions, which consolidates input of members of the public in all the provincial public hearings. So the committee might want to decide to look at that report and reflect and consider the report. However, we need to indicate that there will be an overall report which will cover all the three elements. The report that was done by members of staff during the provincial public hearings, that's number one. Number two, the report that is assigned to the external service provider, focusing on written submission. And then the third element that will form part of the overall report is the report that will focus on the oral submissions that were yet to conduct in Parliament. So these are the issues that members have to look at. Coming back to the issue that has been raised by at least three members, as earlier indicated, the issue of how do we report petitions or submissions that had additional submissions. That's a good question. The approach that we have taken is to use the qualitative research approach, where at this stage we simply report that we have received this number of submissions, and of these individual submissions, these are the further submissions that accompany this submission. we are not at the stage where we have decided whether signatures that support a particular submission constitute a submission on its own. We are not at that stage. At this stage, we are simply reflecting on all the submissions that we have received for the purposes of transparency. The issue of how we define a submission should be looked at a later stage. Thank you, Chairperson.
Dr. Domo,
Thank you very
are
much.
you around?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, go.
I did interject when after Honorable Kwahumbe came in to say what she's raising is something that we can reflect on. I wanted us to take it outside this platform to say we are going to engage, but I think to listen to the report and make sure we actually appreciate it, though it is going to be different. The oral submissions that we are going to now entertain in Parliament is the next item, the written ones. The oral submissions of public hearings and analysis all combined, we will get actually a comprehensive matter on that. But maybe we need to engage and agree that there shall be a portfolio committee meeting that we can dissect to say, just present Mpumalanga and Limpopo visits. We also look into our own notes, we enrich that and go forward. And the next day, or maybe it could be a comprehensive one. So I do not want us to get into it so much today, but already we are beginning to have a sense that members would want to have that as a separate standalone item before we get a whole comprehensive report on NHI. And if we agree on that, then that would be fine. Can we move on the second item now? Because there's another matter that I need to raise with you, which I just discussed with the minister, which is urgent. The next item, honorable members, is to say the process of listening to the request of the written submissions has to start someday. And there is a request that we actually indicate and ask the staff members to make a proposal. We were thinking that we were going to do with the budget review report now in the month of October, and be ready to entertain those organized institutions that want to come and make a presentation to us. So there's a bit of a challenge with regards to the annual performance plans of departments. Hence, a bit of November again will be to deal with the budget review reports. However, we still wish to say in the month of November, we begin a process of inviting institutions that we have wanted. While this process that we are now finalizing, doing the dots and doing everything that we would agree upon on the terms of reference and getting it appointed and coming back to inform us it is there, what is happening, let's interact. We need to be starting this process that is way parked. There have been 121 institutions, organizations, individuals that want to come and present to us. We would want to actually say the management committee of this portfolio committee, in principle, bring to you tentative dates when we can start listening to those institutions in the month of maybe mid or late in November, so that before Parliament rises in December, we would have started moving into those processes, which when you look into 121, we might probably be finishing around February, March. And at the same time we finish those, we will still then be getting this report that is being consolidated now after the terms of reference. So I wanted to check with the honorable members, your comments in regards to getting the management committee of the portfolio committee to work on that process and submit the proposed dates and timelines when that can start. Can members lower their hands and then start again? Was there hands that have remained there, or are these new hands? Okay, let me.
No, Honorable Chair, I raise my hand with regard to the previous item before you conclude. I think you didn't note me.
I had asked, when Honorable Janji brought it back to me, I thought she had finished. That's what I was actually asking her to complete.
My hands was still up. I don't know how to deal with it.
Maybe it's as Honorable Janji did not see it, because she's not privy to that slide. Let's hear what you then have to say on that one. Honorable Kwahube, I see your hand is up then. Honorable Janji, are you on this new item now?
Yeah, yes, Chairperson.
Chairperson, I'm on the new item.
Let's finish then with Honorable Munyai on the previous
Thank
item.
you. I wanted to say that one issue on the terms of reference, anybody that express their views for or against to be considered on appointment, it should not be considered. We need a company that did not hold a view, express a view, publicly view on the matter. So that will be very helpful, because if with the company that's appointed or research entity that's appointed is the one that really was either publicly submitted for, against, or for, that company or organization may have a conflict of interest on the issues. That's what my addition will be on the terms of reference.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Honorable Janji, and then Honorable Siviwe Kwahube on this new item.
Thank you, Chairperson. The new item you are bringing is for the committee to listen to the people who had submitted their written submissions and wanted to come and present to us. I think we did sort of touch it in the last meeting. And we were given what we call time frames. But it looks like those time frames were given will not work, because the work of Parliament is not, we cannot decide on how we are going to do it now. So I agree with you that the committee can, the secretariat or whatever you call it, can go back and make for us the proposals on presentations on how we can listen to the people who had wanted to be listened to. Because even that report will still need to be collated and analyzed. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Kwahube.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to seem like a stickler for process, but I don't want us to adjourn this meeting, Chair, without us all being on the same page. And so I think that we just need to clarify, and I think Mr. Bandi and his team have tried. Perhaps we can get some clarity from you about which processes are running parallel to one another here. Because there is still the oral submissions that we got from the provinces. And now you've indicated that because there is reports per province, we will then be able to receive those reports presented to the committee. When do we anticipate that to happen? As the first, because it's also important, Chair, that we don't sibamba pasibambe pa. It's important that we are also systemic about the way in which we are handling the process. So are we going to complete that whole process of oral submissions that were done in the provinces? Are we going to get those reports from the committee secretariat, compare our notes? Like you said, I agree with you. When is that going to happen? And when can we say at least that process is now done? And then we've now discussed the terms of reference for the oral submissions. There's still a very big elephant in the room where I feel like we can't just leave that discussion without clarifying it. Mr. Bandi says that it will only be decided later what constitutes a submission. Now, Chair, I'm very uncomfortable with that, because South Africans were always under the impression that they can make submissions in various ways. Now, to retrospectively change what will be considered a submission can get us into quite a bit of trouble. So that's something that before we can say, here are the terms of reference, here's the contract being a bid to a contractor, we need to decide ourselves as the lawmakers what constitutes a submission, so that even if that process is happening parallel, which I agree it should, while we're busy with other work, but we still need to clarify it. We know that it's done. We know that it's complete. We know that we are all happy and have voted on the TROs. And then the last bit then becomes the process you are talking about, the one where we start beginning to listen to submissions. I agree, we don't have to wait for the service provider to finish its work for us to start with that process. I agree with you on that. But I'm very worried that no one process is complete here, and it's a little bit haphazard. So I do plead your indulgence for some guidance here as to what's completed, what will not be, by when do we start what, because I don't have a sense that we are completing any of the different cycles.
Okay. Yeah, maybe let me come here and then the members will probably indicate whether they agree with my suggestion and proposal. I was actually making a suggestion that in starting now the NHI process, our first meeting be the meeting where we would be listening to a report of start in Mpumalanga, finish in Gauteng. Whether that report would have been brought to us overnight or 2 days before. We go through that report and we go with the parliamentary staff presenting to us. We work on that report. Obviously, we may not complete it or that day, or we do. We may have gaps. We may have to bring in things in that report that we think were left out. And we close that meeting with the understanding that those additions, those subtractions will be attended to. Go staff member, deal with that. Maybe in another 2 weeks' time, we bring that report now, seeing towards its perfection, at least as far as the whole country tour of public hearings. That part be attended to. And we then say, we are not parking it, but we have made our inputs, is going to be processed. I also then envisage a situation where I didn't hear what Mr. Pan was saying, what is not a submission, and what becomes what. I don't know what he meant by that. That then we are then saying the process of terms of reference is being looked into, and that matter might take its own process going forward, finalize it, agree, all of us coming in to meet with this successful service provider, we deal with that matter, and then that then carries on till about end of February as it is indicated. Why then we then start with the written organized institutions coming in, we may be interrupted by the staff members bringing back that report, which was of the oral submit of the public hearings in the country, that we now sent it back for auditing, for corrections and all that. But we have a date to start. Suppose we start mid-November calling institutions, then we say, no, next week on Wednesday, we do not call anybody, but we get that report, which 2 weeks ago we made inputs on, and let's listen to it, so that at one particular day we can say we are relatively satisfied with what we went to do in the public hearings, and this is the report that we can put one side while these other processes are on. So I foresee a situation where maybe I'm suggesting we can only get that interruption, but our first meeting on the NHI process now be the day we listen to the report of our public hearings, make our inputs, make it known to the staff members, this is what we left out, this is what we must add on. They go away, they deal with that, while we then can continue with the public hearing, with the oral written submissions, with the presenters who are coming in to meet with us. May I check if there could be an amendment to the whole package of proposals from members in handling this matter going forward?
I raise my hand, Chair.
Honorable Munyai.
what was not submitted to Parliament directly cannot be constituted as submission. Honorable Chair? Honorable Chair, can you hear me?
Honorable Jacobs, you'll come after this. I see your hand. You'll come after Honorable Munyai. Let's listen to Honorable Munyai for now.
Honorable Chair, what did not come to Parliament directly to the email provided to directly by the person raising an opinion of supporting or not objecting or expressing an opinion cannot be regarded as submission. What I'm trying to clarify is that I cannot create a platform to me and seeks to suggest that I'm a Viogas Majalamba, then I begin to submit on behalf. It doesn't work that way. Requested for submission was advertised to be submitted to Viogas Majalamba email. So only what must be supported is what has been supported by a person to an email that was provided to Viogas Majalamba. That was must be regarded as submission. The rest that did not reach support, that did not come directly, it cannot be accepted.
Jacobs.
As to how we ought to be taking this forward. I want to agree with you. There are three things we need to be able to manage. We need to be able to talk to this to the three processes, somehow to run a way and a manner it would be each again. I just want to ask maybe one or two questions. I think we are also hopefully speaking about if I may, about
Which part of Western Cape are you at, Honorable Jacobs?
is there a challenge with my connection?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right, Chair, I will try to reconnect with a different internet connection. You may take the next
You are
member.
audible
Thank you,
now.
Chair.
Continue
You
now.
are audible now.
Chair, can I try again?
Continue now. We can hear you.
So, Chair, I'm going to try to just summarize what I was saying. I said thank you very much.
Honorable Jacobs, just write your input down. We cannot hear you at all. Just write it down, please.
Chair, I raised my hand.
Okay, Honorable Tumza Tanti.
Chair, I was going to say I agree with the what you have put forward in as far as the reports from our public hearings, so that we can put that one aside. Now is the time frames. Is the report ready? Can we be told when we can sit and listen to these reports? probably we may not finish all the provinces in one sitting unless we are allowed to take a whole day, which I don't think the parliament will agree. But can we work on that? Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable members, give me and the management just 2 days to come back on what you have actually asked. All we are saying, in principle, if you agree on this proposal, we have to amend it. We'll forward it to you, but it may just take 2 days for us to respond to. Can we be ready with the report on what the report? I know the report has been started. I haven't looked at it. I will have to, I don't know whether right now I can ask them, Honorable Ms. Majalamba to indicate the readiness, how far the report, if she can be able to say yes.
Yes, the report is ready, Chair. Thank you.
The report is then ready, honorable members. It's upon us to then agree on a particular date next week, this week, or whatever. So let's not finalize the logistics of that now. The report is ready for your input, additions, and subtractions. So we'll have to schedule that meeting soon.
Sorry,
Yes.
Dr. Loma, just some clarity, sorry.
Yeah. I noticed your hand, Ms. Kwahube, yes.
I just wanted to, okay, I'm glad that the report is done because then at least, Chair, I agree with Dr. Kyanki that it means then we are able to, as far as we are able to, as far as we are allowed to, at least conclude the first part of that process. So it means then, I don't know, you can then decide, I think, you know, it's your prerogative in terms of the logistics of how that works. But I don't think that we'll be able to get through all 9 provinces in one day. So, because obviously I'm assuming that that report from the oral hearings is divvied up into, like you said at the beginning, Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and the lot. So I think we can let you and the team decide how we consider the reports per province. And then once then that is done, I think then in you and the team coming up with a proposal for how we listen to the submissions by the entities, I think that timeline then needs to take into consideration that we've got 9 provinces to listen to. Firstly, the reports obviously condensed, and then we can begin listening to the submissions. So I just wanted to clarify that so that the timeline is realistic. Also considering the work of Parliament.
Honorable members, I might have seen the report by Friday when I come back from Cape Town. I will then be able to submit a report to you and having suggestions to say, look, this report condensed is still long enough. It can't be 1 day, it can't be 4 hours. Let's break it down. We can't keep members to listen to a report that long. They have to make meaningful input. So can you give us up to Friday to decide to complete that report and give it back to you in terms of timelines? But if in principle we agree that our first bite here will be bringing the public hearings report into us in whatever form, 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, then that is done while we are also updating you our readiness to invite, because even if you wanted to bring this and that organized institution, you need to at least give them a week or 2 for them to prepare and adjust, even though we will still agree that to be virtual. But again, people must just have to organize their diaries. So while then on Friday, we will then be giving you a report and maybe indicating our starting point next week on the time slot that we can always request in Parliament to do so. Then we could also be ready to start inviting people to make their submissions, and then interrupted by the issue of the coming back of Mr. Fine, whatever is refined from this meeting, if there is issue before he goes on further with this. Can we then live with that type of a work in progress report, colleagues? Yes.
Agreed, Chair. We'll hear from you on Friday.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, honorable members. May I then indulge you on an item that has actually not been here? I had asked Dr. Janti to the when I went out to take the call from the minister. After speaking to the minister, I then had to phone Mr. Frolick, and Mr. Frolick has agreed for me to convene an urgent portfolio committee at 8 tonight. The minister wants to address us on another matter that is very urgent, and he needs to really meet with us at 8. It probably will not be more than an hour. It's just that there are issues regarding certain regulations on issues regarding to the disaster processes. It is important. It is not normal that the minister would seek an audience with the portfolio committee on regulations. But this one is so critical that he must get us to understand and be part of that report. So may I therefore formally invite, firstly, our parliamentary staff to inform you that Honorable Frolick has agreed you guys to host us again on just make it just 1.5 hours. Probably won't be more than that. 1.5 hours meeting starting at 8 sharp. You will have to send us our connections. I am now formally inviting you all members to available at 8 o'clock, a briefing from the minister on an urgent matter. Thank you very much. Then we adjourn. I have already summarized how we are going to process the other ones. Thank you very much, members. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chairperson. Molos Viwe.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye, honorable members.